There's a vegan world, and then there's the bigger world. Now, of course, we want the vegan part of the world to get bigger. And on the way there, we had the interesting challenge of trying to do that in a way that the outer world notices. Well, on today's show, we're going to be talking with a couple of people who have gotten a lot of notice and who are about to get a lot more. This is going to be fun. Hey, everybody. I am Victoria Moran, and this is the Main Street Vegan Podcast. And you're probably, if you're on YouTube, you already see who's with me. And if you're listening, I'm going to tell you with little more waiting and wondering. Renee King-Sonnen from Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is here, and I think she's actually going to be joined by her other half, Tommy Sonnen. And if you know the story, Tommy was a cattle rancher many generations down there in Texas, and he married Renee, and she was doing country singing, and she thought the whole thing of being a cattle rancher's wife would be cool. And they were also in love, that fits in there too. But then those little calves and cows were causing some consternation, especially when the day came to send them off to that sale barn and then on to obviously death. That was just not sitting well with Renee. The rest is history. Rowdy Girl of Sanctuary, brand new book coming in October. Rowdy Girl, Confessions of a Vegan Cattle Rancher.
October 26th, 2026.
2026. Okay. And the Rowdy Girl documentary is going to be on PBS. So, oh my gosh, with all of that, why do we even need to talk about what we're really talking about, which is that Renee and Tommy are up for a competition that could really get that outside world we were talking about to take notice. Welcome, Renee, and eventually Tommy, to the Main Street Vegan program.
Hi, so good to see you again.
It is so good to see you, and I'm so
Oh,
excited about all this stuff that is going on.
yeah.
So I think most people that are going to listen to a podcast called Main Street Vegan already know something of the Rowdy Girl story, but for those people who don't, tell us how you got from where you started to here.
Well, I went vegan on a cattle ranch quite by accident. It wasn't ever planned. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't in the cards that I thought I drew. I mean, it was in the wild card. Okay. I married my husband Tommy for the second time in March 25th of 2010. And when I moved on to the cattle ranch, um, I was producing, Texas women in country music showcases. Tommy was doing all the cattle ranching thing and working for Dow Chemical. And I really didn't want anything to do with the cows. I wasn't interested in any of the work involved on the ranch. And Tommy wanted me to be involved, and I didn't. We had lots of little, not really fights, but like, I need help with this. I need help. And I'm like, don't ask me. I didn't even like going out there in my high heels, with because they would always break in the dirt or the rocks. And so anyway, one day he comes home and tells me about these two calves up the road that needed a mama, and you know he he had ulterior motives, let's just say, because he knew I had a real heart for babies, and I always wanted a child of my own and never could conceive. And so I was like, oh, babies. So I went to see these little babies, and one of them is the notorious Rowdy Girl. And so when I saw these two calves, I just immediately fell in love, especially with Rowdy Girl. She came bouncing up to me, like kicking her heels, and she had this little white heart on her head and still does. And, I just was like, well, aren't you a little Rowdy Girl? And, you know, little Bobo died very young. She had a failure to thrive disease, didn't make it, but I bought both of them. They were the only cows or calves I ever purchased. I bought them for $300 a piece, paid $600 of my own money, and to buy these calves, and came home. And by gosh, now I'm in the business with Tommy. And but what I didn't count on nor him was me falling in love with Rowdy Girl, like I would fall in love with a dog or a cat. And that's what ended up happening. And she began to feed me a line, like it's like I was feeding her, bottle feeding her, and she was feeding me an etheric spiritual language that I had never ever heard or seen before. I have 1,000 hours of yoga teacher training, including Ayurveda. So, a lot of people don't know that about me, but I studied ahimsa, and so, but all my yoga studies were not around the ethical, uh, about the ethics of yoga, and it's so interesting that yoga teachers don't get it, but because I didn't either for a long, long time. And, I'm even studying ahimsa and nonviolence. And, we're talking about these things, but, it's not, you don't get all the way through the veil. So anyway, when I was started waking up around Rowdy Girl, a lot of the things I had been taught in all my yoga teacher trainings that I didn't ever really adhere to, nor did anybody else, began to surface. They kind of like started bubbling up in the records, and I started going, "Oh, wow, there's something going on here, and I even started like thinking about all my yoga training and all of it, and do no harm, what that means. And anyway, when I would come home, I would have to be a good cattle rancher's wife and shake all that off. And um, I couldn't stay connected, to Rowdy Girl the way I was when I was with her. It was like I was living in a Celestine prophecy type of atmosphere where everything was brighter and greener, and everything was more lovely. And it was like the whole world stood still in a very divine way when I was bottle feeding Rowdy Girl. And it opened me up, it became like a passageway into the heart of creation almost. It was what it felt like. But I couldn't stay there when I was at home. I had to, shake it off. But I've always had the capacity to do spiritual. I can do spiritual. I can go deep. And boy, all it took was Rowdy Girl to take me down that rabbit hole. And the rest, they say, is her story, actually. And Rowdy Girl, turned my whole world upside down, and Tommy's, so much so that it was in October of 2014 that I went vegan on a cattle ranch, and not on purpose, not planned. We were having lots of arguments, along the way, just because I didn't really like what we were doing. I didn't like the way it felt in my soul to watch animals that we raised get on a trailer knowing where they were going. And Tommy kept convincing me, they only have one bad day. This is what they're bred for. This is what we do, Renee. This is what everybody does. We're doing good stuff here. This is what cattle ranchers do. And so, it's the narrative that we're all taught. And just never did sit well with me. I wasn't a vegan. I was just having a spiritual awakening, and I didn't know it. A real spiritual awakening, a real moment of ahimsa. What it meant, what it means to do no harm. I And so anyway, on October 31st, I had been watching a bunch of slaughterhouse videos for several months. The reason I did that was because Tommy kept telling me things that I didn't believe. And so I would start doing my own research. And one of the things he told me was that all the things I was seeing was PETA propaganda. And so I was trying to see through the eyes of PETA propaganda, like everything I was seeing was distorted, was somehow staged, you know. And I'm like, this is real. What do you mean this is Peter propaganda? And anyway, I started crying a lot. And next thing you know, Tommy's like, "You shut up. Stop all that crying." And on October 31st, I stumbled on the dissertation of Dr. Melanie Joy, where why we eat pigs, wear cows, and love dogs. And she was talking about, uh, there was a family eating beef stew. And when everybody was eating the stew, I'm right there watching. And somebody says, "What's the recipe?" And the lady of the house says, "Well, I'm so glad you asked. You start off with a pound of very young golden retriever." And at that moment, it was like, you know, for people out there that aren't vegan, but love animals and maybe on the verge of change, that moment for me was like, it was like something cracked. It was like, and in my spiritual body, and something got through, and it was like, oh my god, you know. Whenever they asked for the recipe, and she said it was could be that it was golden retriever. I was like, I would never eat a golden retriever puppy chopped to death in pieces. And then she was, "No, no, kid, just kidding. It's really a cow." And everybody eating was so shocked that they could not continue their dinner because and I was just like, I was with them. And so, anyway, Tommy comes in, tells me to hurry up. We go to my mother in law's house. It's Halloween. It's every year we did the little Halloween block party there with all the kids. They all had their costumes, and all the grown ups would show up. And I always call it the in laws and the outlaws. We're all together, and and we would always share a meal and sit outside in our lawn chairs and watch the kids, go down the street, in the parade, in the little Halloween parade. And so whenever I walked in, there was all the kids in their costumes and my mother-in-law coming out with a big pot of beef stew, you know. So it's like all of a sudden I'm in the story. I just
Yeah.
left the story and now I'm in it in real life. And I was like, oh my God, she sits a ladle out this big old thing. And I was like, I can't eat that. I just was, it was just like a no moment. And she was like, why? And I said, because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it. I can't eat that. And everybody looked at me, stopped talking, looked at me. And then my mother in law looked at me. She's like, what did you say? And I said, it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat that. And she said, well, Renee, you can pick it out. And I was like, no, there ain't no more picking it out for me. And I went vegan that moment. Now, I didn't know I was going vegan. I mean, I kind of did, but I never admitted it until I got in the car with Tommy, and maybe not even until I got home. I don't know, but I was like, I think I went vegan.
In Texas.
Yeah, because I had stumbled across some of this stuff when, you know, but anyway, I don't know. Tommy may have a different spin on it, but that's what happened. And then a lot of the things that happened after that is how I ended up buying the herd. So,
So, Renee, I know you guys are running the sanctuary and doing all these things that take all kinds of time and effort. And somehow in there, you found the time to enter a contest. Tell us about that.
oh my gosh, you know, I was just like rocking along on social media like I do, and I saw this America's Favorite Couple thing roll by, and and something about Variety magazine, and the Rowdy Girl documentary got a write up in Variety magazine about a year ago. And so we got a lot of press from that, a lot of, and I was like, wow, Variety. And then also I saw that the winner would get $20,000. And I was like, wow, I should enter that. Me and Tommy should enter that. I didn't even tell Tommy I was doing it. I just did it. I just did it. Anyway, and I just started clicking on the links and just started going to the, doing all the stuff. Next thing you know, I'm putting all the pictures in, I'm putting the story in, I'm doing it, and next thing you know, it's done. And it wasn't ever planned, it wasn't thought about. It was just something I decided to do. And I mean, I figured why not? Wouldn't it be cool if America's favorite couple was a vegan?
Absolutely. And you have a good chance. I think your ordinary vegan couple that kind of seem a little bit, I don't know, like stereotypical vegans, probably America is not ready. That you guys are regular people. And Tommy was a cattle rancher. And so I think you've got some kind of reach that could get you a lot of votes from people who aren't yet vegan. So tell us a little bit about America's Favorite Couple. Is this sponsored by Variety or is there somebody else behind it? How long's it been happening?
No, it's actually sponsored by that guy, that famous star in Jurassic Park, him and his wife, Goldblum.
Yes. A graduate of the neighborhood playhouse like my daughter. Little
You
piece
know
of
his name?
trivia
Do you know who
nobody
that
asked
is?
for. Huh?
Jeff Goldblum
Okay.
and Emily.
Okay.
Jeff Goldblum and his wife Emily are hosting the contest,
Okay.
and they're really a cute couple. And then the winner gets $20,000 also.
Nice.
And
Nice.
so and you have to tell everybody what you're going to do with the money.
Ooh.
And I told everybody I'm going to donate every bit of it towards our medical treatment facility for these cows.
Right.
And it's going to be doubled. It'll be matched.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so, how many people are contestants and what's the process and how can we help? How can we vote?
Oh, girl, this thing. There was at least 1,400 or so people in it, couples.
Hmm.
I don't. Yeah, it was a lot. And in our first group when we first started, there was like 74 couples in our group, and there was 100 and something groups.
Woo.
I don't even know how many people. It was a lot.
Okay.
And you had to keep winning all these stages to get to the very top. So Tommy and I stayed at the top in our group the whole time we were number one. And so we graduated to the next level, and then another level we stayed at the top, and now we are still at the top in the quarterfinals of,
Woohoo.
of our group. And I don't know why that's happening.
Well, you know why I think it's, well, part of why I think it's happening is because you guys are just cool. You're the kind of people that ought to win something like this. But I think, we were talking about spiritual stuff earlier. I believe with all that's in me that this is the time, no matter how much else is going on in the world, that we're just like, oh, the world is terrible out there. Evolution is turned around and is going backwards. Yeah, maybe for a little while it is. But this is the time for the animals. And
Yeah.
things are going to happen to get this cause out there in ways that we can't even imagine. And this could very well be one of them. So you're in the quarterfinals, and what do we do about that? How can we help?
Well, it's free to vote.
Okay.
You can go on. Uh, this is the thing right here. This is see, we're currently first in our thing.
Yay. So
And
I see the website, and we'll put this in the show notes to everybody over at mainstreetvegan.com. But the website is America's Fave, F-A-V, couple.org.
yeah, and you can vote. You vote every day, and then some days the votes are doubled. And you got to have a Facebook account to vote.
Okay.
And they also are representing two nonprofits, Oceana and I think LA Food Bank. But so there's two nonprofits that if people want to donate to those
Mhm.
nonprofits, that those votes, like if somebody donates $10, then we
Mhm.
get 10 votes. So
Okay.
if somebody so in some day on the days it's doubled, if you donate $20, then that couple gets 40 votes.
Okay.
So we actually have people donating money.
So a lot of people are being helped by this, people and animals. I love it. I love the win-win.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, "Oh, you guys only care about animals." It's like, yes, we do. Humans are animals too. We're just carers. What can you say?
And
So,
if a non-vegan couple wins this that used to be cattle ranchers, that to me is such a big win for the animals.
yeah, a vegan couple. You said a non-vegan couple.
No, I mean, oh no, vegan. If a
Yeah,
vegan in a non-vegan contest is what I meant.
that's right. Yeah,
In a non
exactly.
in, if a vegan couple in a non-vegan contest can
Yes.
win this contest,
Mhm.
it is a win for the animals, and it gives other cattle ranchers that are not yet vegan like another pause to go, wow.
Hmm.
Ma, did you see that the vegan cattle ranchers, they used to be cattle ranchers, they won America. Would that be? I mean, we haven't won, honestly, obviously, but it's a dream.
Well, and it's as you keep coming up first every day, it's not such an outrageous dream. So we'll talk again at the end about how we can all be voting for you guys every day and helping you get further and further along. When will the ultimate be known? The big winners.
September 4th.
Okay. Okay, so it's coming right down to the line. So we need to get our voting fingers ready. So that is for America's Favorite Couple, and it's America's favcouple.org. And you know that we're going to be voting for Renee and Tommy Sonnen, Renee King Sonnen. Okay, so when you're not winning contests and doing other amazing things, let's talk a little bit about what your life is like, Renee, because I'm getting a sense more and more from people who listen to and watch this podcast that everybody's just really interested in everybody else's real life. Because sometimes, and I am guilty of this myself, I'll be a guest on, somebody's show, and it's all about, well, talk about the book and talk about the program and talk about the project. And that's all great. And those things are all important. But when it really gets to be something that people want to be part of, is like, and what scares you? What's difficult, what's tough. So in your life right now, you are certainly a cause celeb in the vegan world. You're a definite celebrity for people who are watching this podcast and probably lots of other people beside. What's it like in your heart of hearts as you look out there and know that despite all the work that we've all been doing for so long, more animals are being killed for food than ever in history?
It's it's daunting. I live in the barbecue capital of Texas, and a lot, near there, near Lockhart, Texas. So there's not a day that goes by that if I'll drive out there that I don't see animals that are doomed to their death. They're right up the road. There's a rodeo. It's a small rodeo ground, and every week they have a different group of little baby calves that are really skinny that have been taken off their mothers that were probably just bought at a sale barn at a real cheap price, and those little babies are just used to rodeo to rope them, and they just throw them down. And I I'll be in my car lots of times just crying, screaming. um, I will take my phone out and video when I see uh, like trailers, livestock trailers full of, crammed full of cows. And I'll video and I'll talk and I'll let them know that I see them. Um, you know, it's hard, living in cattle country, seeing, when you love cows so much, seeing the truth behind the curtain because Texas is full of cows. They're everywhere. And it just breaks my heart to know that when I see those trailers that we used to do that. I never forget it. I never forget. that we used to contribute to that, and we were as blind as they are. And I know that if we can wake up, anybody can.
I find that when people wake up to veganism, particularly from an ethical point of view, but however people get here is fine by me, it's not just enough to say, okay, I found this. This is great. I'm having beans and greens for dinner. Uh-uh. It's this. So now what? What do I do next? What do I start? What do I support? What do I go forward? A lot of people are saying, oh, I'm vegan now. This is so cool. And I have $5,000 in the bank. I'm going to start an animal sanctuary. What would you say to that person?
Oh man, I would say, whoa, hold back. And there's so many sanctuaries. There's so many people with good hearts that want to do that. And you know, I would say, you need to own your own land. You need to have a lot of money. You need to you need to not be the one doing all the work for very long anyway. Um, and it's better to put your money in organizations that have been here a while that are saving animals than to start a sanctuary where you're going to end up losing it and then the animals suffer. Because I've seen it happen so many times since Tommy and I are in our 11th year with Rowdy Girl, and I've seen sanctuaries come and go, people with big hearts, and the animals suffer, and we get calls, can you take these animals? It's if you don't own your own land, if you're having to rent, you are putting the animals at risk. You know, if you don't have your own resources, I mean, fundraising is not easy. Fundraising is a full-time job, and not only a full-time job, it's a double-time job. It's always something, it never ends, and you can never stop. The animals' lives are going to depend on us forever, and I'm constantly thinking about the future and our legacy. And when Tommy and I are no longer here, that Rowdy Girl's, still going. I mean, I have dreams and visions of having a museum, you know, and I'm known for my dreams and visions coming true. So I want a museum big enough to put that red trailer in. I really do, with lights on it and everything. And I want to be able to tell the story, of what happened what used to happen in that red trailer and what happens around the country in trailers just like that. So, yeah. But anyway,
Well,
it,
I'm so glad you said that because, I completely agree with you. It would be so wonderful if the donor base for sanctuaries grew at the same rate or a more rapid rate than the number of sanctuaries, but it simply hasn't. And so to take care of those that are existing just seems so important to me. So let's talk a little bit about attitudes. I was talking to another activist the other day who had come up with this really interesting mathematical formula about for overall kindness in the world, if we go vegan en masse, we save so many more lives than if we end wars in certain parts of the world and whatnot, because he was basing it on animal life, human life equal. And I think, many of us, that's how we see it. It's life having an expression on earth, whatever the body looks like. But that is absolutely not how most people think, whether for religious reasons or other reasons. The majority of people that we come across believe that humans are exceptional and different and a cut above other animals. And so I was talking to this person. I said, your formula is really cool, except they're not going to like it. So what do we do to get people to expand their consciousness and just see non-human beings more as individuals who matter?
that's a really good question. You know, the big problem that I see, having been seduced by the machine, is that, we live in a consciousness, not just a world, but in a consciousness that is all about, animal agriculture and the byproducts uh, of eating animals, the byproduct. It's all about that. It's all about using them, exploiting them, how to get people to see them as sentient. Stop it! I got this cat. Tommy, we
Uh,
get. I'm sorry. He's wanting to play. He's only 4 months, not quite.
aw.
And so, yeah, he's wanting to play with me. I haven't. I've been gone for a couple hours. I love him to death, but I just like, no, come on. But anyway, the consciousness of our planet is steeped in animal ag violence. I was at the grocery store just a bit ago, and I was sitting there talking to a lady, uh, very nice lady, and we got kind of stuck there because it started raining really hard, and we had seen each other at the salon. I was there getting my hair, straightened and all this, like I do, like I like to do. And then all of a sudden, this big rain comes, and she was there sitting next to me when she was getting her hair done. She was like 82, getting her hair all teased up and fixed. Well, we happened to run into each other at the grocery store, and we couldn't, neither one of us, go outside because it was raining. You couldn't even see hardly in front of your face, front of your hand. It was raining so hard. And both of us were like, oh, well, hi there, We just saw each other at the salon. And, neither one of us wanted to go out and get our hair messed up. And so we hit up a conversation. And, and so I started talking to her. She wanted to know what I did. And I told her. And she was like, oh, 82 now, from Iowa. Oh, you don't eat beef and you have cows? Wow, y'all don't butcher one a year? No, ma'am. No, ma'am, not anymore. And she was like, well, what do you do with them? I'm like, they're our family, I'm sitting in HEB in the grocery store, people coming and going and all the things. And she was just like, so like, wow, And then she said, well, what do you do with the eggs? And you eat the eggs? I'm like, no, ma'am, we don't eat the eggs. And well, those are good for you. They got good protein. And I was like, well, let me tell you something. I said, that's one way to look at it. And the way you're looking at it is the way you're taught to look at it and trained like everybody else in the world. I said, but there's a whole nother way to look at it. And that's when I said, when you look at it that way, everything changes.
Mhm.
And so, what I have to say, and we had a great conversation. She's got my card, and she's looking up Rowdy Girl, and we had a great conversation. And but what I have to say is, in order for people to change, they have to change the way they look at things. And if you keep looking at animals like they're food, like they're commodities, like they're entertainment, like they're a couch, like they're you know a a mink stole or a leather jacket. If you keep looking at animals like they're objects, then you're going to keep seeing them as objects. Once you see them as sentient beings, just like you, once you realize that if a being has eyes, it has a nose, it has a mouth, it has ears, it can have babies, has its own language. I mean, just because we don't, some of us, I understand. I do listen to other languages of animal species, and once you start listening and seeing with different eyes, I call it real eyes. Like when you realize with real eyes,
Ooh.
not the ones you've been taught to see through, but real eyes. You've heard of the third eye. Everybody's heard of the third eye. There's real eyes behind the eyes that you've been taught to see through. And when you realize that you've been lied to, it changes everything. Then you can start using your real eyes. And then you'll realize that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And we're walking around in a normalized violence culture. Violent isn't nice. Violence isn't nice. There's nothing nice about 90 billion animals going to their death every year. I mean, nothing nice about it, nothing sacred about it, nothing righteous about it. It's horrific.
That's very potent stuff. And I know that you find every way you possibly can to get the message out. And now, if you guys become America's favorite couple, you will have even more ways to do that. So
Uh,
that is just as cool as it can be. Just a minute here, as I see we're kind of going to be coming into our winding down portion. I
Say
just want
hi, Tommy. Tommy's over here. You
and
want
we'll
to say
get Tommy in on this too. This is my little announcement.
hi? Oh,
Shout out to our sponsor for this episode, and they are Compliment, wonderful supplementary supplements, but they're really compliments because you have a great diet already, being a plant-based vegan person. But sometimes we need a little bit of help. Everybody knows that we need some B12, we need some vitamin D, and some other things. And so the wonderful basic complement complete supplement takes care of that. They also have a really nice clean protein powder and all sorts of other great stuff. So do check them out at lovecompliment.com. And if you use Main Street in all capital letters in the discount code, you'll get yourself 10% off. Now, speaking of discounts, if you're a regular listener, you already know this, but I have to say it a couple of more times because it's almost going to be too late and I'll never say it again. Because things are as they are. And the world is perhaps not as friendly to vegans as it was a few years ago. Well, we just need to change that. And one way that I know to change that is to get more certified vegan lifestyle coaches and educators out into the world who are helping people teaching, speaking, podcasting, writing, starting businesses, working for plant-based companies, working for animal rights organizations. All these things are what graduates of Main Street Vegan Academy do. Check us out, mainstreetvegan.com. Brand new cohort is starting at the end of September. We go until November, then you get certified. Then you go out and do amazing, remarkable things, even more amazing and remarkable than you're already doing. And to make that more possible for as many people as possible, you can come for 50% off using the discount code FRIEND, all caps, because we're friends of each other, we're friends of the animals, and we are friends, thank goodness, of Renee King Sonnen and Tommy Sonnen. And we can vote for them at America's Fave Couple, FAV.org/2025. And I'll put all that stuff, plus ways that you can find out more about Renee, Tommy, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, the contest on the show notes at mainstreetvegan.com. So, Renee, do we have your other half over there? We got any
over
former
here.
cattle ranchers coming
Come
into
on
the
back here,
picture?
Tommy.
I will try to get back here.
You gotta bend down.
Oh, 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 little Tiger Woods. That's the cat. Hey there, Tommy. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
Great. So, how do you feel about Almost Famous?
I don't know how I feel about it. I was listening to a lot of this podcast from the other side of the computer there, and I just wanted to jump in so many times because I have my own thoughts about all this stuff, but it'd take probably an hour to really hear me out.
Well, start.
Well, I never wanted to be vegan, and I didn't know what a vegan was, and I married Renee for the second time. She moved to the ranch. She became vegan right after I retired from my number one job. So my number two job was running a few cows and making hay. And all of a sudden, she's vegan about the same time I retire from Dow Chemical, and there was no way I was going to be vegan. No way. I mean, I was trying to figure out how I could get a divorce and save the ranch, but she knew so many people and a lot of good lawyers and stuff. I knew I had to watch but pretty hard. And anyway, somehow or another, between the time she became vegan, October 31st, and sometime in January, I started cooling off. And I started eating a little bit of the stuff she was eating because I wasn't real healthy. And my dad had died at 62 of a heart attack. So I had a vested interest in being more healthy. Oh, and I knew she, veganism had a lot of good health benefits. So I started just for health. And I met some really nice vegans in the meantime in February, March, April. And I became vegan May 2nd, 2015. Um, how that ever happened, I'm not quite sure, but it happened and I haven't looked back. Uh,
Be careful you're not pushing on that chair. It keeps moving
it's
the
an awkward place for an interview, but I threw in 2 cents. And, sometime if you want to listen to my side of the story, you'll get a whole different
You
perspective.
want to do that sometime?
I'd love it. I'd love it. I'd like to get a little of it now, since we're here. So just to kind of come full circle, Tommy, so it's been 10 years for you. How different does the world look to you today, just in general, from 10 years ago?
Well, it looks pretty much the same to me. It doesn't look like, the world is becoming vegan to me, but I have met a lot of vegans and uh, I'm probably responsible for creating quite a few too, because we probably 60% of the people that come to Rowdy Girl Sanctuary are not vegan. A lot of them get drugged in by their wife or their husband, and a lot of those people do become vegan. You know, I started out probably doing it for my health, but I have the best job in the world now in a lot of ways because I can be a Texas rancher. Basically, I live the same kind of lifestyle as a Texas rancher does, but I don't have to sell my cows. And when I was, and I only had about 30 head on the 96 acres there in Brazoria County.
That's how many I bought whenever I bought them.
And the only if I would have known then what I know now, when Renee said she was going vegan and wanted to start an animal sanctuary, and I would have just, I should have just donated them to her. But before I married her in 2010, I owned that ranch outright. It was paid off. Everything on it was paid off. And the only thing I had that I needed to pay for was my hay equipment. And that's about $150,000. Well, if I go vegan like Renee, uh, how am I going to make money? You know? And so anyway, I didn't know what a vegan was. If I had it to do all over again, I would tell Renee, okay, I'll go vegan with you and I'll just donate my cows and we'll become a vegan farm animal sanctuary. I didn't think it would work. I was totally against it. Like a lot of my friends were in the Brazoria County Cattlemen's Association. Uh, they think I'm crazy. And I mean, I lost my best friend and business partner.
Mhm.
Um, it was pretty traumatic for me to become a vegan. And then all of a sudden I had haters everywhere, vegan haters,
Vegan haters.
because I had sold my cows for $30,000 to my wife. And, but I wouldn't, I was trying to get a divorce, I wasn't going to give her cows and then pursue a divorce. I didn't know where I was at when she was going vegan. All I knew was my life was really screwed up, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
But now look at it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but on May 2nd, we had our first festival. I was vegetarian up to that time for several months. I had lost about 40 pounds. I was feeling a lot more robust and healthy. And that day there were more than 100 people there at the festival, and I saw a lady that said, "I'm going vegan today," and I said, "Me too," and that was how it happened.
I love
Clover just brought the ice cream that day, and Follow Your Heart brought the cheese that day, and that was the two things that was holding me back.
it. I think it's that way for a lot of people. Well, that is a really cool story. And as I listen to you and I look around the world, and I've been vegan a really long time. I've tried for 50 years and officially 100% of the time managed to do it over 41 years ago. So it's been a while. And I guess I thought we'd be farther along. On the one hand, we're so much farther along. People know what this is. Animal rights is a thing. Veganism is a thing. It's a label on, dates and other strange produce that's always been vegan, but some people think it's a selling point to slap vegan on there, which is all great. Cosmetics, I go to the salon, Aveda, all vegan all the time. And yet we're still just a tiny percentage of the population. And I wonder if until we get over that hump, until we've got our big percentage that's really going to push things forward fast, if we can just see ourselves as kind of the salt of the earth. I've always liked that phrase. And, you're not going to just pour salt all over your food and make it all icky and like brine, just a little bit, the good kind, the Celtic sea salt, little bit, grain here, granule here. That's us maybe. And we're just in there making everything just a little bit kinder because people know we're vegan, whether they want to be or not. They know we are. And I just think that uplifts everything. What
I
do you
like the way, I like the way you said that.
Well, thank you. Because here we are today. All we can do is keep at it. And what great, wonderful project, everybody, for today would be when you finish listening to this, let's go to this website, americasfavecouple.org, and vote for Renee and Tommy. And then do also check out raddygirlsanctuary.org and see all the amazing things that these amazing people are doing. I'm so happy to be on the planet at the same time as you.
Thank you. All right, Tommy, you're gonna have to move those. Thank you. Woo.
Well, thanks so much. And so we've got the documentary. When is that going to be on PBS?
I think Jason has said it's going to be January.
Okay. And is there a way to watch it now? Is it anywhere streaming or do we have to wait for January?
Oh, no, no, no. You cannot watch it until it's streaming on
Can't watch
PBS.
it until it's okay. That's all
It's going to
right.
be it's going to be on Roku, it's going to be on Apple, it's going to be on all kind of platforms.
Fantastic. And that's Rowdy Girl.
Rowdy Girl, the documentary, yeah.
Rowdy Girl, the documentary. And then you said the book is next year. So we'll have to do this again before the book comes out.
Book is not, yeah, Bloomsbury is my publisher.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And
Congratulations.
they published Harry Potter. So,
Woo!
I'm sitting there like, wow, and she was a nobody author, and who knows? I mean, would it be fun if the I have a line I always say, the wind in the air was right that day, and Mother Earth came out to play.
Ah,
Something I say
nice.
all the time, and it's in my book. But sometimes things just come together, and um, who knows with the documentary going on PBS. I mean, America's favorite couple, whether we win or not, we've had a lot of fun, but a lot of things could all come together, has the potential to all come together to really, create a great trifecta. Who knows?
That's a beautiful, beautiful envisioning that we can all envision with you guys. Thank you. God bless. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube and you want to subscribe and say like and all those nice things, oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you for the nice things. In the meantime, let's go out and make Main Street vegan.
Thanks for listening. Find out more about today's episode at mainstreetvegan.com, where you can also learn how to take your vegan or plant-based outreach to the professional level through Main Street Vegan Academy. And join our inner circle at the Main Street Vegan Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. See you next time.